Welcome to another episode of Adoption and Beyond. I'm Alyse White, Social Service Program Manager at Adoptions from the Heart and co-host of this podcast.
Hi, I'm Nicole Fowler, the Director of Social Services at Adoptions from the Heart and the other co-host of this podcast.
In today's episode, we're diving into the world of kinship adoption and the incredible impact it has on families. We're thrilled to be joined by Chelsea Barnes and Randi Kopelnick. Chelsea's the Vice President of Grands Stepping Up, and Randi is the Chief Operations Officer. Grands Stepping Up is a remarkable organization dedicated to supporting grandparents and other relatives who have stepped up to take care of children and their families.
Kinship adoption is a unique and often under-discussed aspect of the adoption world, where relatives, most often grandparents, take on the role as primary caregivers. It's a journey filled with challenges, but also profound joys and rewards. Chelsea and Randi will be sharing insights into the world of Grands Stepping Up, the resource that they provide, and the importance of community and collaboration in supporting kinship caregivers.
Whether you're a kinship caregiver yourself, considering stepping into this role, or just want to learn more about the dynamics of family caregiving, this episode is for you.
Chelsea and Randi, welcome to today's episode and thank you for joining us. Before we get started with our conversation, we would like to go into our What's Buzzin' segment. Myra, what do you have for us today?
Hi everyone, I wanted to share some big news in the adoption world. So on September 5th, the Chinese government announced that they were closing their doors to international adoption. While AFTH does not work with international adoptions at the moment, we did years back, and Chinese adoptions played a big role of our agency for a long time. So we know that this news can be hard to some of our adoptees and adoptive parents. So I just want to hear from both of you guys on your feelings about these decisions and maybe some advice that you could give parents of Chinese adoptees who may be struggling at this moment.
Yeah, I think this is such a controversial and tough, topic. There's, of course, pros and cons to all international adoption. We know one of the major reasons for China's decision is because their population is dropping. And of course, that makes sense. When we think about international adoption, it can be lovely and it can be beautiful. And then there are times where children lose their home country and their culture and potentially their language. And so there's just pros and cons to all of it. And I think at the end of the day, for those that were hoping to adopt from China, this is, of course, a devastating announcement to hear. There's a lot of people still in limbo, but for those that have already successfully adopted from China, I would say really getting into some support groups or counseling and therapy and making sure you're connecting to community resources would be an important step for those that are struggling.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And there are so many mixed feelings surrounding this topic and issue, and the children that are parented here in the States and the children that are parented internationally. We did do a podcast with Taylor Shennett, who is an adult adoptee from China, who shares all of her mixed emotions prior to this news. So I think it's an assumption that children and adults are going to have these feelings whether or not this news is new or not. And so she shares her different traumas from being adopted from China and under the policy, and her feelings about not knowing her birth family while also loving her adoptive family. And so all of those things, I would highly encourage people to go check out her social media and the podcast that we did with her to hear from somebody who's living this experience. And so, yes, and I agree, Alyse, it's a controversial topic with mixed opinions, and I think everybody has mixed feelings about it, and listening to those who are living the experience is the most important thing.
Definitely, thank you. And I'll make sure that I link that episode so people can listen to it. Well, thank you guys so much for your perspective, and we can get back to our conversation.
Let's get started with our discussion. Chelsea and Randi, we want to welcome you again to our podcast. We're so excited to learn more about all the great work your organization is doing. Would you mind telling us a little bit about Grands Stepping Up and what really inspired the creation of the organization?
So my mom started this organization because for the last 12 years has been raising our niece, her granddaughter. And when she was around 7 years old, my mom, made the decision to officially adopt her. And she just saw like so many other families in similar situations that, needed help. And there there was a support group, and that was great. And everyone had a place to go and like talk about what they were going through, but there wasn't any like other resources. So there wasn't anyone to say, I'm getting this 3-week-old baby that, is leaving the hospital with a bottle and a car seat. There's no crib, there's no bassinet, there's no formula, there's no diapers. So we really wanted this like holistic wheel of support, so that you could say yes. You could say yes to getting your niece, or you could say yes to getting your granddaughter or your grandson, and have an organization that you can call that shows up for you. And whether that be therapeutic services, or that kid needs a birthday cake, or you need everything you would need for a 3-month-old baby that you've never met before because you didn't know anything about them, or a long list of different scenarios. We wanted
legal help for
legal,
adoption
such a big one. Yeah, all these different scenarios we wanted to be able to assist and help, just like we wish there was something like that for our mom.
Absolutely. So it sounds like your organization offers sort of several large pillars in terms of helping with kinship care. You mentioned some legal assistance that you have. What other capacities do y'all get involved in terms of resources?
We have 6 signature programs: the legal clinic, which is one of our major ones, and then we have therapeutic services, and we also have Dennis's Pantry, which was actually named after our uncle who had Down syndrome and died of COVID in 2020. That actually not only serves our grand and kinship families, but it also serves all Delaware County residents as well. It's not only food, it's also a complete baby pantry. So we do diapers, formula, anything you could need. And it's drive-through. So you come, we load your car up, and it's worked out well over almost 5 years now. In January, it'll be 5 years. And then we also have a holidays program, like she said, and that is all year long. So we have birthday club is included in the holidays, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, back to school, I'm gonna forget, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day. They're all including it in our holidays programs. We also have a huge volunteer program that includes youth of our community that come in from all different schools and programs, and they see it from beginning to end. So they do drives at their schools or at their sporting events, and then they bring it and they organize it, and then they distribute it to their community members. So they really do see it from beginning to end. And then also we have our youth activities program for our grand and kinship families, and that includes a whole list of items. Included in the youth activities program is also music lessons, which is guitar, run by Mike Campanelli every summer. It goes for 8 weeks. This year, we included a gardening club. It was a huge undertaking, and the kids came out, and from seed to table, they planted all of the items, and we're now distributing them through our pantry as well.
This is amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing this with everybody and your community. It sounds like you not only grandparents and kinship adoption, but all sorts of relatives. And also, it sounds like you have programs that extend out to possibly foster care.
Yes,
and that's amazing. And we know that kids can thrive in their families. And for those of you who may not be familiar, we were just wondering if you could explain to us how kinship adoption differs from other forms of adoption.
I actually have friends who are adopted. They did not know their biological parents and chose not to find them. And that was their choice, and that was okay. And then my sister came along and had my niece 12 years ago, and my mother had taken on my niece as her guardian. And the kinship aspect of it is that it's not just you're adopting any child. It is a family member or a close family friend's child or a niece, nephew, cousin, godchild. That is a kinship family adoption.
Absolutely. So, in thinking about kinship care as in caring for a family member in whatever capacity that might look like, what are some of the specific challenges you all see often when it comes to kinship caregivers?
I think that it's a whole different set of challenges and joys, because like I think through traditional adoption, closed adoptions, you have the opportunity to maybe just keep this person a part of your family and never divulge that they were adopted, or that they've just like always been in your family unit. And I think what like another set of challenges is that these kids were already in homes. So it like mirrors that like foster care aspect of like some of these kids are ripped out of their homes and placed in CYS for the night, or until they can be vetted by, they can be, their family members can be vetted, or if they even want them, it's a hard commitment to commit to. And I think that it's not a traditional contractual like adoption, what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like that you now have like all of these challenges and hurdles within the child, because now the child has already been with birth family or your daughter or your son or your sister for, some of these kids are coming as babies. Some of these kids are coming fresh out of the hospital. Some of these kids are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 17 years old before they need their grandparents or other kinship families to step in and start assisting in raising them. So I think that like a lot of people in that realm don't think of what like the challenges are within your own family unit, because you guys are all still family, regardless of the person's shortcomings, regardless of, mental health issues, incarceration, death, like these people are still in your family. And sometimes I think people forget that it's so hard for the child to see that my aunt has to raise me, but like my mom maybe, or my dad, they got their life together, but now I've been with my grandma for so many years that this is now my family. And there's like a different like aspect of like mental health issues for the child.
I was curious what advice you would give to somebody considering being a kinship support for a child and their family.
Well, I think like our situation is unique because we're in it. Like this is literally what happened to us. From the grace of God, my sister is well and has, her has a family, is doing really well in life now. I think that we have to really like consider it, really just like you have to consider like yourself and your family first. And even though these people are your family, it's a lot to take on another person. And I just, my mom just did yes, yes, of course, yes, 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 yes. And she would say yes 1,000 times over to any of our children that needed her. That's like the standpoint of our organization. It's my mom literally just walked by. It's on the back of her shirt. Just say yes. So that's the advice I would give. Just say yes.
I think there's so many grandparents out there that in their heart want to do this, right? Want to help their families, but maybe just don't have access to resources to realistically be able to do that. And so it's so amazing that there's organizations like yours out there to allow people to just say yes, right? It's more than just wanting to take that on. It's a financial burden and
Huge financial burden.
and emotional, and it takes resources. And I think nearly every grandparent on earth would probably always want to help if they can, but it's more than that. And so being able to have access to an organization like yours that will provide them with support and resources and services to help them do that is so important and so incredible. And I wish we had this everywhere. I'd love to know just a little bit more, Chelsea and Randy, about both of you and your roles within your organization. What you all do there on a day-to-day, how you kind of came into those roles.
Before we go into that, can I just add to what you just said about the grandparents? We also have to remember they already did their jobs. Yeah. They were already parents. And for them to take on the role a second time is I hate to say it this way, but it's a burden for them,
like we have families call us that like we're 72 years old and we're going back to work at Acme, and I'm like, what? Like, and they're like, well, yeah, we raised our kids, like we're in retirement, but now I have 3 boys that are 15, 14 and 12, and they're literally eating us out of house and home, and I have to go back to work to feed them. So it is a lot.
We spend a lot of time crying because we don't, even though we have resources to help them, it's not always enough. So it hurts our hearts a lot too, because we wish we could do more, but one of these days we'll have the funding to help everybody. But
every nonprofit everywhere.
I know, but
So me and Randy, we are the chairs of our holidays program. So from like October to the first of the year, don't talk to us because we're literally doing Thanksgiving, Christmas, and right before then was back to school. If you could just like see our pantry like during Christmas time, you can, they're like, Chelsea, where are you? Say polo, and I'm like in a trash bag like sorting Christmas gifts. So we like thrive in our Thanksgiving, especially like Thanksgiving and Christmas is just like our baby. Like, in addition to that, I'm also the chair of our dentist's pantry. I do lots of fundraising opportunities. We're always there like every Thursday night, cleaning, sorting, trashing, giving. We have like a good little group of people that come and help. Like she touched on, a couple of sports parents collected used sports equipment, and that can be such a huge burden on our families. You know, they want to keep these kids active and in extracurricular activities, but they don't have $500 to go buy all the equipment that's needed for their grandson or their nephew or their cousin to play in these activities. The holidays are when people want to give, right? That's when your people are pulling on your heartstrings. So I feel like this is like a great time for an organization like us and our like subcommittee where we're able to show what we can do. I'd say like in the summer months are pretty hard for us to help our people, our families and clients. As soon as back to school rolls around, last year, how many families did we have that signed up?
I don't remember the families. I just know it was over 800 children we helped.
Yeah, we just really like buckle down and like focus on that. I'm also a full-time teacher at a daycare, so very little room to add anything else to there.
Wow. I mean, you all do so much.
So it is now time for our Ask Anything segment. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions on Spotify and our YouTube comments. You can also submit them on social media, on our Instagram or Facebook. You can send us a message. So if you have any questions, please send us any questions you may have. So today we have a question from Michelle. Michelle says, I want to know what the process is like to adopt my granddaughter. We unfortunately lost my daughter 2 years ago, and her father is not in the picture. My husband and I have been taking care of her for the past few months, but we would like to make it official and adopt her. Is it the same process as a non-familial adoption?
That's a great question, and I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter and your grandchild's mother. I don't know if there would be guardianship paperwork in place. Everything is so situation dependent on that. So I would say the first step would be to contact a family attorney and just try and get some answers to your questions without necessarily hiring an attorney. But the non-familial adoption process is a lot more intense and different than a grandparent adoption process. So I imagine that they would need to work on termination of parental rights of the father. And I do not believe that you would need a home study through an agency, but again, each situation is very unique. Usually that depends on the familial relationship, and a grandparent is close enough to not need an intense home study process through an agency. So that would be my suggestions. Alyse, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it. It will be, state by state dependent as well. And so, like Nicole said, reaching out to an attorney to learn your state laws will be really important. But generally speaking, when you have a grandparent that's wanting to adopt, you typically do not need the intervention of an adoption agency and can typically just do that through an attorney and usually your local probate court. So it is definitely typically an easier and quicker process.
Thank you so much, guys. And for anyone else who have any questions, please make sure you leave them in our comments.
I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the role of community in supporting kinship caregivers, and how can, the broader community really get involved to support kinship care, to support your cause, to support people they may know that are caring for family members.
Donate to your local pantries, donate to your local organizations, donate to Grand Stepping Up. We can always use the help in helping all of our kinship families, and not just our pantry. I mean, all of our programs, legal clinic, our youth activities is always looking for funds to help these children with their extracurricular activities.
The birthday club,
things of that nature. Get involved if you don't have the funds to
Come
donate,
volunteer.
come volunteer. We're always have activities that you can come out and volunteer. Even if you have a half hour to give, any time is greatly appreciated and valued.
Because 9 times out of 10, it's just us little women trying to bring all of this stuff out of the basement of our church. So
Any local organization that you can volunteer your time with. And, if you know of a kinship family in your area, send them our way. We are more than willing and able to help them. So
that, and organizations and young nonprofits like ourselves, this is how we function, is the support of our community.
yes.
Everyone comes together to just say yes. We as an organization wouldn't be able to do what we do without donors and without people that fundraise for us and without people that volunteer their time, because sometimes time is more valuable than any monetary donation.
This is wonderful. And I think sometimes the message for any child is that you're not alone. Like, we're all here in the
Yes.
community together. You're not the only, child going through this, but it can be tough circumstances for children through adoption to see, kinship care of whether, oh, why this family and not my family? And there's so many different challenges that can come along. And so I love what you do to bring the community together. And this is the next generation, and telling them that they're not alone and we're here for you. Are there any common misconceptions about kinship care that you'd like to address at all?
So I think a big misconception is that a lot of people think that we're paid stipends through the state, and we are not. We are not paid. Most of us are not paid any stipends to accept our kinship family member, which puts, again, going back to the financial burden, a lot of people assume that we are like the foster care agency and that we're vetted. Just because you're vetted through them doesn't mean you're getting their monthly stipend, which is very unfortunate. And that's what we're fighting for, because we think our kinship families deserve that. So that's like one of the big misconceptions that I always use my voice to correct people on.
Yeah, we actually went to Harrisburg last September to start the fight for that, for the grand and kinship families.
And let's be real, there's no room. There's no room in the foster care system to take any additional children.
Which is why they're being called and asked to take on these children. So why not? Why can't they be included in these stipends?
Absolutely. That is put aside for foster families that are unexpectedly taking children into their homes, and then the same is for kinship families. And we were talking about earlier, kids can thrive in their families too.
Yes.
And it does deserve to be fair all around. This was an unexpected decision, and it's best for our future generation for these children to be cared for financially, physically, emotionally, all of the things. So I wish you the best in your fight for that.
Thank you.
Chelsea and Randy, I'd love to know if you have any, stories or things you can think of really just impactful moments that illustrates difference in the lives of the families that you serve.
I remember that one call, it was the reason we started this organization. And one of my mom's fellow grandparent friends, who was going to the support groups with her because she had already had 2 of her grandchildren, called and said, my daughter had another child, and CYS called me in the middle of the night and is asking me to take this baby that's addicted. And they're coming here. I have an hour to answer yes or no. I think I'm gonna say yes, but here's the thing, Karen. I don't have a car seat or a bottle or a formula. And in 24 hours, my mom drove up to her house with 3 cars full. She didn't need clothing for a year, with diapers, with wipes, with every brand of formula for the kid to try, with every sleep sack, with every swing. Because you have to remember, some of these children are coming addicted, and they are very much in pain and going through withdrawal. And that makes it another challenge for these older caregivers of trying to support them with baby carriers and sleep sacks and different swaddles and swings and bouncers to try, and just having a room to be able to walk into and say, yes, Mary, yes, you can take your grandchild, because I'm coming with a carload with everything that you will possibly need for this time period.
We always love to hear how organizations got started, and it sounds like your mom's experience and experience with this friend of hers really sort of kickstarted things for your
Yeah,
organization.
it did.
You had this need in your community.
I think our legal stories are like private to us, but it's always such like a victory for whatever reason to keep the child safe or to change the child, the permanency, the you never have to leave this house, like you
or your family
or your little dog Freddie, or whatever thing that person's attached to, that child's attached to, and to say, this is your bed. You have a bed here. You have a place to live. You never have to go, back to the situation that you came from that wasn't the best. I think a lot of people forget about like the reunification, and that was like big in our own family. It's very like uncomfortable sometimes. The person's still our family, right? Like, and I just like always go back to that. And it's like, she's still a sister. She's still a daughter. She's still a mom. Regardless of her shortcomings. And we picked it up for her, but it was like so long that now she's a part of like our like family unit now. And I think it causes more chaos for the children trying to figure out like where they fit in and what, like the whys and the why nots and the what ifs.
You kind of need to elaborate. So our sister had more children after the fact. So our niece has siblings that do not live with her. They live with their mom. And
there's so many situations like that. There's so many like different, situations where the parents want to reunify with their children, and maybe the child doesn't want that, or maybe the child wants it and the parent doesn't. There's so many different scenarios and situations that arise that it's so important to have like a therapeutic clinic and to have readily available people that are willing to help these families navigate such a complex dynamic for everyone, for the person that said yes, for the child, and then for the other side of the person that did the work to get to where they needed to be and to be a good parent and a member of the community. Now, I think the mental health stigma is so very, very important in these situations.
Absolutely. And you bring up this great point about kinship care in particular that's so unique, and that it allows, right, for this option of permanency for our children, which is so important. Children need permanency, they need structure, they need safety and security. But it also at times leaves the door open for reunification when that's appropriate. That's so beautiful. It's not something that you see really in any other form of adoption. That's a big difference with kinship, and something for our listeners to know and be mindful of. So thank you for bringing that up.
And we actually had a success story with one of our grand families. Chelsea's co-chair at the pantry was a grand family, and her son was clean for over 10 years and ended up reunifying with his children.
This has been such amazing information and resources for families all over. And I hope there's more organizations like yours around the country, because this is
we do too.
So helpful. Yes, yes. What are some of your future goals for Grand stepping up? Are there any new projects that you're thinking of? You guys are so busy too, so I'm not putting more on you. I'm just curious.
We would like our legal clinic to be fully funded so that, there's not a situation that we have to say, sorry, there's no funds for you. There is no funds. This is the generosity of our community that steps up. And our legal clinic, with all of our attorneys on there, give a discounted rate to our grand and kinship families to help them. But it's honestly just not enough. And these people that are in the rut of it, they don't have $1,500, $2,500 to go and spend to keep the child safe and the child where they want to be, and to keep the normalcy for the child. So that's like a big thing that we're trying to work on, is to get our legal clinic fully funded.
And then also working with getting funding for the kinship families, whether that be a stipend or for emergency services or whatever that looks like. We're working on funding for the kinship families. So
important goals to have, to be able to continue to serve your community in the ways that you really want to. Do y'all have any advice for anyone listening in that may be in a situation where they're considering kinship care?
Oh, it's a hard one, because it differs for everybody. It really does. And I may say yes and Chelsea may say no. I mean,
I think it's so important to keep the child within your family, and especially when they're older. They already know you. They already know you're their grandmom. They already know that you're their aunt. To rip that child out and put them in the foster care system, I think you just have to think about the child, and that somehow it all works out. You just have to say yes.
I love that mission statement. Mind frame of just say yes. Thank you both so much. For anyone listening that wants to get involved or maybe make a donation to Grand Stepping Up, where can they go? How can they do that?
They can go to www.grandsteppingupinfo.com, and our Venmo and PayPal handles are Grand Stepping Up, all one word.
We always need those Christmas donors. So
Another Christmas plug. I love it.
Yeah. She just can't get over it this time.
Randy and Chelsea, thank you so much for being here with us today, sharing information about Grand Stepping Up. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us or our listeners today?
I think we covered it all.
Thank you both so much for being here, for sharing the information. We thank you for your time.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Yes.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you and hear about your mission, and we wish you the absolute best. And I will be hoping that this goes nationwide because it is much necessary.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
work. Well, that was a wonderful conversation with Chelsea and Randy today. Alyse, what was your main takeaway from our conversation?
Gosh, we talked about so much today with such really great information. And I think just that underlying theme of it really does take a village to raise a child. Anyone parenting can tell you that it's not a job that's easily done by yourself. And so for anyone listening that may be a grandparent or may have a family member, maybe it's your niece or your cousin that needs some extra support, if you are in a position to give that, there are resources out there to help you do that successfully. And so just reaching out and finding those, if that's something that you really are interested in, is really important. Nicole, what about you? What did you think about today?
I agree completely. I always say community, community, community. Whether you are not a parent, parenting biological children, parenting children through adoption, parenting family, kinship adoption, being involved and active in the community, if you're in the position to help, is extremely important. It shows your children the importance of community as well, and coming together to ensure that children have safe families. And so often that is with kinship placement, and there are not a lot of resources out there. So I really, really appreciate this conversation, and I hope it sparks something in all of us. That wraps up our conversation with Chelsea Barnes and Randy Kobelnick from Grand Stepping Up. We hope you found today's discussion an inspiring and informative one, as we did.
Absolutely. It's incredible to hear about the dedication and support that organizations like Grand Stepping Up provide to kinship caregivers. If you or someone you know is involved in kinship care, we encourage you to reach out to them and take advantage of their amazing resources.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners like you who are passionate about adoption and beyond. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Adoptions from the Heart for more updates and resources related to adoption.
Thank you again to Chelsea and Randy for joining us, and thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We look forward to connecting with you in our next episode.